So DeMarcus Lawrence just went on FaceTime with a former Cowboys teammate and basically told him that Dallas is not a winning destination. If you want to win a Lombardi trophy, you should leave the Cowboys. I mean, seriously? You're out here telling us to our face that you can't win a Super Bowl in Dallas? No, bro, that's not the case. Let me tell you who you really were here. Let me tell you how you were one of the biggest reasons the Cowboys kept failing. And then I also want to talk about this George Pickens drama because, trust me, there's a lot to unpack. What's up, Cowboys? Welcome to the NFL Playbook Cowboys. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Look, I'm gonna be real with you guys. When I saw this story pop up on my timeline, I felt my blood pressure go up immediately. Like, I actually had to sit down for a second and process what I was reading. So here's what happened. Dante Fowler Jr., who played for the Dallas Cowboys last year, was a free agent this offseason trying to figure out where he wanted to sign. And apparently, before he made his decision, he got on FaceTime with DeMarcus Lawrence for about 30 minutes, just chopping it up, right? And what was Lawrence's biggest message to Fowler? If you want to win the Super Bowl, you should come here to Seattle. That's what Fowler said after signing with the Seahawks. That was the message that helped convince him to make his decision. Now, look, I get it. Lawrence went to Seattle, and yeah, the man won a Super Bowl. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that didn't happen. But what I have a real problem with is the audacity, the absolute audacity. Because this is not the first time Lawrence has taken shots at Dallas. You guys remember last year when he was going back and forth and said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that he knew for sure he was never going to win a Super Bowl in Dallas. Yeah, he said that. He actually said that. And at the time, I think a lot of us were kind of like, okay, bro, whatever. But then Seattle went and actually won the Super Bowl. So now he's feeling himself. Now he's on FaceTime recruiting guys away from the Cowboys. Well, here's what nobody wants to talk about, honestly. Let's have this conversation. DeMarcus Lawrence, who are you really? Like, let's go back and actually look at this man's career in Dallas. Because the way some people are talking, you think Lawrence was some kind of dominant force that the Cowboys just let walk out the door. That is not what happened, guys. That is not the story. When DeMarcus Lawrence was in Dallas, especially in those later years, the man could not stay healthy. I mean, it felt like every other week we were hearing about some kind of injury keeping him off the field. And then there's the sack production, or I should say the lack of it. After he got that big contract, he became more of a run stopper than a pass rusher. And I want to be fair here because being a run stopper has value, right? But you cannot pay a guy like he's going to terrorize quarterbacks every single week and then get run stopping production in return. That's not the deal the Cowboys thought they were making. And then Micah Parsons shows up. And the moment Parsons came to Dallas, he just took over. He stole the show completely. And I think that bothered Lawrence more than people realize because all of a sudden you went from being the guy, the face of that defensive line, to almost being an afterthought. And you know, when you're cashing a big check and a rookie is outshining you at every turn, that's a tough pill to swallow for anybody. I understand that. But the bottom line is Lawrence was a big part of why this Cowboys team couldn't get over the hump. He was supposed to be the guy who got after quarterbacks and helped this defense become elite. And it just didn't happen. So for him to now sit back from Seattle and act like Dallas was the problem, nah, man, that doesn't sit right with me. Now, about Dante Fowler, look, let me be clear about something. The Cowboys weren't exactly begging this man to come back. When he was here under Dan Quinn, he had 6 sacks in 2022 and 4 sacks in 2023. Then he went to Washington with Dan Quinn and had 10.5 sacks, which, yeah, that was impressive. I'll give him that. He had a nice year with the Commanders. But then he came back to Dallas in 2025 and the production just wasn't there the same way. 3 sacks, some tackles. It wasn't like Dallas was sitting there desperately trying to bring him back for another run. So Fowler going to Seattle, I mean, okay. I actually kind of think this is fine for the Cowboys, honestly. I'm not losing sleep over Dante Fowler Jr. going to Seattle. What I am focused on, though, is the fact that we will play Seattle this season. And I know coaches always say they don't look at games as revenge opportunities. You know, every game is the same, 1 week at a time, all of that. But come on, you're telling me Brian Schottenheimer goes back to Seattle, his old stomping grounds, and DeMarcus Lawrence is standing on that sideline after everything he said? And we're supposed to just treat that like a normal regular season game? No, man. Circle that one. Put a star next to it. That game needs to be personal for the Cowboys, even if nobody in that locker room says it publicly. Okay, now let me shift gears, George Pickens, because this drama is still running behind the curtains. But look, I want to be really careful with how I say this because there are some people out there who are already trying to blow this into something it's not. So let me just lay out the facts first and then give you my honest take. George Pickens signed his franchise tag early. The non-exclusive tag worth $27.3 million for 2026. He didn't have to sign it early. He could have waited until July to put his name on that thing, but he signed it early. And then he didn't show up to the voluntary OTAs. Now, Dak Prescott was there, CeeDee Lamb was there for phase 2 after missing phase 1, but George Pickens, absent. Here's the thing though, and I need people to really hear this. The word voluntary means something. It means you are not required to be there. So technically, George Pickens has done nothing wrong. He's not in violation of anything. He's not skipping mandatory stuff. He just isn't showing up to the things that are optional. But I'll be honest, it doesn't look great. And the reason it doesn't look great is because of the timing. You sign the tag early, which normally signals some level of cooperation or at least acceptance of the situation, and then you don't show up to anything. It sends a mixed message. I mean, what is the message, George? Are you good or are you not good? Because right now, nobody can tell. Now, there are some people saying this is George making a stand, sending a statement to the Cowboys about how he feels about not getting a long-term deal done this offseason. And you know what? Maybe. I could see that. But here's the part that really puzzles me. And I'm not the only one thinking this. If you're going to work out anyway, if you're staying in shape and staying active, why would you do it somewhere other than the Cowboys facility? Because you can get hurt working out anywhere, running routes on your own, cutting, doing all of that. The risk is real no matter where you are. And if something happens to George Pickens outside of that Cowboys facility, the Cowboys could very easily say that's a non-football injury. And that changes everything. That changes the whole contract conversation. So why take that risk just to send a message? And the real key dates here are in June. That's when things actually get serious. The mandatory OTAs are June 1st, 2nd, 8th, 9th, and 11th. Then there's mandatory minicamp. If George Pickens skips those, he gets fined. We're talking real money coming out of that $27.3 million. And I do not believe George Pickens wants to lose money. I think he'll be there. I think June is when we see George show up and plug in and get to work. And then, of course, there's July 15th. That's the deadline for franchise tag players to sign a multi-year extension. The Cowboys have made it pretty clear that they expect George to play on the tag this year. There are a few reasons floating around for why they haven't extended him yet. One is that they're already paying CeeDee Lamb $34 million a year, and carrying two of the highest paid receivers in the league creates cap challenges. Another reason is that George Pickens is still relatively new to this organization. He's only been here one season, and the Cowboys want to see more before they commit long-term money. And the third reason, his history in Pittsburgh. Look, the Cowboys have been great with George Pickens, Dak, Lamb. The culture here is worked, but other teams aren't sure they can replicate that environment, and the Cowboys themselves want more proof before they go all in financially. So here's my honest take on all of it. The Cowboys need to get this George Pickens extension done. I believe they can make the numbers work if they get creative with void years and signing bonuses. You can knock that $27 million cap hit way down. And the longer they wait, the more expensive it gets. If George Pickens has another monster season in 2026, that next contract isn't going to start with a 3, it's going to start with a 4, and then we're in a whole different conversation. So here we are. I am really frustrated with DeMarcus Lawrence, and I desperately want the Cowboys to beat the Seahawks and take revenge for me. But what do you think about this? I really want all of you to share your thoughts in the comment section.